Sorry for these reminiscences, but I've been thinking a lot about my childhood and Aiko and my parents over the last few days. But if I could get to the serious part of my discussion, biologists today think that our species, Homo sapiens sapiens, evolved about 100,000 years ago in Africa. And I want you to imagine that 100,000 years ago, scientists from a different galaxy been going through the universe trying to find life somewhere else in the universe. And 100,000 years ago, they discover our solar system and the third planet from the sun, Earth. And they realized there's life on that planet. So they parked their rocket above the Rift Valley in Africa, and as they looked down, come on, Sid, you can turn that blade. So they looked down, as they gazed down on the Serengeti Plains, you can only imagine that what they saw 100,000 years ago. Plains filled with wildebeest and antelopes and elephants and giraffes and rivers jammed with hippos and crocodiles and the air filled with flamingos and parrots. I mean, what an amazing place. But if they look carefully, here and there they would see little groups of maybe 5, 6 animals that were walking on 2 legs without any fur on their bodies and just kind of running around. I don't think any scientist 100,000 years ago would have poked down, pointed a finger at them and said, watch those ones. Those are the creatures of destiny. I mean, you know, you think about it, there weren't very many of us. Tiny populations, we weren't very big, we weren't fast, strong. We didn't have special fangs or claws or special sensory gifts. And we sure as hell weren't as beautiful as a flamingo or a salmon. So, I mean, what did we have going for us, you know? But if those scientists had watched us more carefully and watched the behavior of those early humans, they would have realized something was different about that animal. And the difference was that 2-kilogram organ that was hidden deep in our skulls. It was the human brain that was the key to our survival, that gave us an advantage over the other creatures who in so many ways were more impressive than we were. The human brain endowed us with an enormous capacity to remember. We have a huge memory compared to other species. We were driven by an insatiable curiosity, and we were incredibly creative. We were an inventive animal. So that memory, the curiosity, and the inventiveness gave us an advantage that other creatures didn't have. The Nobel Prize winner, Francois Jacob in France, says that the human brain is unique in that it has a genetically built-in need for order. We don't like it when things happen around that we don't understand, that don't make any sense. We don't like chaos because it's frightening. So the human brain, immediately when things happen, we try to understand it and explain what's going on. So from a very early time, people began to try to assemble all of their observations and the information and their insights and their superstitions and all of that. They tried to create an orderly understanding of what's going on. And anthropologists call this a worldview. And in a worldview, everything is connected to everything else. Nothing exists separate or in isolation. So that's the way that humans have always existed, in a world of completeness, where the human brain has tried to explain how things, of course there are gods and all kinds of explanations added in there, but to explain why the world works as it does. And the human brain also invented the key to our survival, and that was the human mind invented a thing called a future. No other animal has a sense of a future as we do. The future doesn't exist, it's just an invention in our brains. But because we invented a future, we uniquely among all animals have a sense of choice. We learned very early that if I go over there, there's something yummy to eat. But if I go that way, there are a lot of saber-toothed tigers, so I'm going to go that way. We made conscious decisions and affected the future because we knew that we would enhance our survival by making these deliberate choices. So we uniquely among all animals on the planet choose the kind of future with a view to assessing what the risks are in the various choices. That's the way it's always been. And I think that it's ironic today that with all of the amplified brain power, we've got scientists and computers and engineers and telecommunications, with all of that increased ability to analyze information, we no longer seem able to do what our ancestors did routinely to get us where we are today. In the past, if a hunter was out hunting and spotted an albino deer, he came running back to the village going, "Holy cow, you wouldn't believe what I just saw." If a woman gave birth to a child with 6 fingers, again, they didn't just dismiss this as some kind of fluke or some kind of random event and discount it. They spent weeks and months wondering, what the hell does this mean? Because in a worldview, the past, the present, the future are all interconnected. So they were constantly saying, well, Jesus, did we do something bad? And are we being punished for something we did in the past? Or is this a sign of something extraordinary that is coming in the future? That was our survival strategy, that we looked ahead and we considered what the implications might be. And even today, that's the way that many groups of people continue to exist. But we live where the dominant societies around the planet no longer seem able to assess the real risks and to act on it. And the result is that we are in a crisis resulting from our inability to take the warnings clearly. The leading scientists of the world, not David Suzuki or Greenpeace, it's the leading scientists of the world are telling us that human beings are on a collision course with the life support systems of the planet. And you can see it all around us. The atmosphere is changing. Whatever Michael Crichton says, he's full of crap. The atmosphere is changing. You just have to talk to Inuit hunters and they will tell you it's changing. We've added 32% more carbon dioxide to the atmosphere than was there 150 years ago. Nothing can take that away. That is a reality that we live with. Over 90% of the large fish of the oceans are gone. And that, to me, when I heard this announcement from scientists, my wife and I wept, because the oceans have been such a huge part of our lives. When I was in high school in the 1950s, our teachers taught us the oceans are filled with limitless sources of renewable protein. They may have been in the 1950s, but they aren't today. Over 50% of the forests on the planet have now gone. There are only 3 large pristine forests left on the planet. One in Brazil, the Amazon, one in Papua New Guinea, and one in Canada, the boreal forest. The rest have all been invaded by human beings and their machines. Species are now disappearing, according to the head of the United Nations Environment Program, at the rate of 50,000 a year. And toxic pollutants are found all over the planet. You can't escape them. That is a consequence, I think, of our failure now to look ahead and begin to choose options for greater survival. Throughout history, as I said, people understood that they were deeply embedded in nature. They were a part of the natural world, and they were utterly dependent on nature for their survival. And in such a world where everything is interconnected, they understood that whatever they did had consequences. And therefore, whatever they did had responsibilities. We had to act in a responsible way. And even today, my wife and I have been very privileged to spend time with Aboriginal people around the world. And if you listen to the stories they tell and the songs and their prayers, it's all about telling us who they are and where they belong on this planet. They thank the Creator for nature's abundance and generosity. They acknowledge that they are dependent on nature and that therefore they have responsibilities, and they promise they will act the right way to keep it all going. That's the way it's always been, and that's the way it continues to be with traditional and Aboriginal people around the world. But today, for most of us, we don't look at the world that way. It's been shattered into fragments, into disconnected bits and pieces. And if we live in a world of mosaics, of bits and pieces in which there is no interconnection, then there's no sense that we are a part of any problem that we see, or that we have any responsibility